Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Menasa Talks. Today, we're going to delve into how do offshore and onshore partners work together. And today, I'd love to introduce you to my partners. One, Shahab Kazim from iDominium, and Sajid Akhter from Ascend Analytics.
Thanks for having us.
For having us.
Well, it's great. I wanted to highlight today, folks, for our partners out there and for the general audience, how to run a successful engagement between a local integrator and an integrator out of Pakistan. So first, let's start with some quick intros. Shahab, tell us a little bit about you and iDominium.
So I'm the founder of iDominium, which is a managed services provider that focuses on application development, data science here in the Houston area. We have our focus on application development specifically because we feel that we can partner up with companies offshore, and specifically Pakistan, where I am from, and are able to produce a successful model. Many years ago, it was not possible to create a fruitful partnership offshore. But nowadays, because of where technology is and the professionalism that has grown in Pakistan, that is possible. So our company deals in several different sectors, including healthcare, oil and gas, as well as utilities, where we provide our customers with customized solutions, customized reporting, customized analytics, with the help of course, our offshore partners. And Sajid is one of our offshore partners that provides us with analytical support and analytical products and solutions. And that for us has been, over the last year or year and a half, a very successful partnership.
Great, Shahab. Thank you for that introduction. And I will move on to Sajid. Please dive in, Sajid. A little bit about you and a little bit about Ascend.
Thank you. I am the founder of Ascend Analytics. Ascend does analytics as a service for organizations varying in size and stature. Our hypothesis and the value proposition generally is that we want to democratize access to analytics across the board so that organizations don't have to invest in full stack data teams, and they can outsource building out data products, architecture, and data governance policies through a trusted partner. So over the course of last 5 years, we've been privileged enough to work with more than 100 different organizations, a couple of them that Shahab bhai referred us to, and very happy to have formulated those partnerships to put Pakistan on the map of managed services and services when it comes to technology or technology enabled, and very happy to be doing what I do.
Wonderful. Yes, it was quite the marriage that we were able to create between you. And for the audience, what we're going to be delving into, folks, is how this working relationship evolved with two parties that didn't know each other from a prior life, didn't have any working experience together. So going back to that, so Shahab, maybe we start quickly with scope of a project that you brought forward and how you went through that process of identifying and ensuring Ascend was the right partner for you. How about some thoughts there?
Yeah, and it's actually a funny story now that you mention it. So we were in the middle of a large project with a healthcare organization here in Houston. And we had done a lot of the data work, some of the architecture on the data side we had already created, some SAP stuff that we needed to bring in for a reporting platform for the financial concerns at this organization. And we were already about 6 to 8 months into the project, and the need was there for a analytics solutions, which does data visualization. And of course, Power BI was our platform of choice. And I was just looking around for a good resource within Houston. Wasn't even looking for offshore. And while I was in the process of doing that, Faruk called me and goes, "Hey, you want to have some Chinese food?" And I said, "Sure." So I met up with him at a Chinese restaurant while I'm having chicken corn soup. I said, "Man, this Power BI business is eating my lunch. Can't find anybody at a reasonable rate. Can't find anybody that's able to successfully understand something this large, because it was a large project. It was there was a ton of data and a ton of reports that needed to be produced. And he goes, "Hey, I got a guy for you." I'm like, "Oh, Pakistani people? Do you think they can manage something this size?" He goes, "Yeah, just talk to this guy. Just do me a favor, talk to this guy." And so I said, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." And I picked up the phone, talked to Sajid, and within 5 minutes of my conversation with Sajid, I knew I had the right partner. And he did not let me down, produced a phenomenal project, a phenomenal platform for our customer. We were able to successfully deliver, and then got a second project after they upgraded their SAP to the new S4 HANA, and wanted to rebuild that based on that. And Sajid came back and saved us again and built a second platform on that. So yeah, it was a funny story, but it ended up really well, and kind of got me into the mindset of, look, there's a lot of talent coming from Pakistan, and there is a real opportunity to bring value to our customers, not only with technical expertise, but with value for money, right? So what we end up having to charge our customers is reduced. We pass on the savings to our clients when it comes to them knowing that some of this work will be done by an offshore team, and they all appreciate it, because for them, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where the work is done, as long as they get something that works. So yeah, so that was our large project that we worked on together.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, Shahab. And just to delve in a little before we jump over to Sajid, for the audience sake, so what qualities or what part of the Ascend Analytics story really appealed to you and made you feel like this is the right partner, right? Because it's not somebody you've ever worked with. He's 8,000 miles away technically in terms of his team. What are some tidbits that you can share with the audience? What are you looking for that helps you solidify a decision?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of ways of looking at it. People in my position are sort of, you can kind of put them in two buckets. Hands-on, technically aware people, that's where I would be, right? So, I've been in this business for over 30 years, and there's very little that somebody can get over me, like, right? Oh, I do this, I do that. If there is an ounce of untruth in there, I'll catch it, right? And that's where the vetting of the person, I know within 5 to 10 minutes of whoever I'm talking to, how technical they are, what are their capabilities, and how they have managed their previous projects. I can get the truth out from them in a very short period of time. Then there's a lot of companies in Houston there where there are non-technical people, right? And they are running technical companies. And so how do they do it? And in my experience, what that has been is really a lot of show me what you've done in the past, right? The references count for a lot. Look, we've done this project, we've done that project, successful. Call this person, they'll tell you how I did, right? And so you vet them that way. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. For me, it was really easy. For me, if the person can talk techie to me, tell me that they understand the technology, tell me that they have done that work before, and then can produce a high level solution while I'm talking to them, I'll know that they're going to be able to do it. It's the same way the way we hire people in our company is, if you're coming in as a senior .NET developer, I'm not going to ask you to write code for me to show me that you could write code. I'm going to ask you other technical questions in terms of the team sizes. I'm going to ask you about your the things that you excel at, and then make a judgment on that. It's a similar process in terms of selecting a partner, where if you say you know how to do Power BI, I believe you. I'm not going to question that you don't know how to use Power BI. I'm not going to ask you how the connectors work. That's going to have to be a given. But the questions that I'll ask you are going to basically show me this guy's got the goods, right? And so those are the two ways I kind of look at how these partnerships come about and how people vet each other to see if they are a right fit. And then, of course, this whole concept of Pakistani to Pakistani, you can't get around that, right? It's a beautiful thing, and so that part also plays a big role in my mind's eye when it comes to us picking a technology partner from Pakistan.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that insight, Shahab. And again, for the audience, what we're trying to develop is real life learnings and challenges and helping them navigate those, which are real and near, as we all know. So thanks for giving us insight on what you look for and how you manage that process. Sajid, so flipping over to you. So on the same token, right, when we started working together, you're an aggressive entrepreneurial sort, hungry for business. But the question lies, you've worked with a lot of different organizations. What led you to believe that you and Shahab could really formulate this partnership, that you could trust him for what he was bringing to the table, and that this could really happen?
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, he's, and I've said this to him many times in person as well, he's one of the nicest stakeholders that I've ever had an opportunity to work with. And I kind of, just like Shahab, I gauged that in the first 5 minutes of the conversation. I spoke to him, I think, for 15 minutes, and I had a pretty good idea that this person would be very easy to work with the way he has drafted the entire project. And he was very, very open about the entire thing. He said, look, I have a SQL architect who's developed the back end of everything. He's not very good at Power BI and he charges me a lot of money. So the problem for me right now is the degree of customization my customer needs in the reports. I can't engage him full time for that, and that is where I'm looking for a partner to take on that bulk of work. And I kind of told him that, we are happy to start there, but technically what we really do is essentially come in and build the architecture too. So if you get us in, it would be on the commitment that once I get this to you and it's a good delivery, you'll involve me in bigger projects that come later down the line. And he said, you don't worry about it. I'm telling you right now, these guys aren't going anywhere. They're going to migrate to S4 HANA. And we're going to have to redo this on a different platform altogether. So I think initially in that conversation, there were a couple of apprehensions that Shahab also had at that time. One of them was that he has had an experience of working with Pakistani partners or offshore teams. In fact, iDominium itself has a few resources, I think in tens probably, that are based out of Pakistan. He was like, those guys are looking for excuses every time there's a vacation or a holiday, and we're in a crunch situation here. So I really need you to commit to a timeline and get these reports across so that, we can start extracting the deliverables out of the way. And I told him that my team is somewhat different to what you have worked with before. And then I told my team that, we're going to over-index on communication, we're going to over-index on availability, even to a point that midway in the project, Shahab and I were having a call and he said, what time do you guys sleep, man? They send out an email at 4 p.m. CST. I go to bed and there's another email from Umar and some of your other team members. So how are you pushing them like that? And I think part of the reason we were able to achieve so much in that short duration of time was because these guys were supremely committed to projecting that, yes, the talent has always been there in Pakistan, but it's the customer obsession and commitment that we really are working on as active values within the organization that then land you in good reputation from partners that you work with as well. So from my perspective, he was a very delightful conversation really early on in the project as well, and a thorough gentleman in terms of project delivery as well. There were a couple of slips here and there, but he was supremely graceful, allowing us all of the room. He also understood that we were reverse engineering our approach on most of the objects. So he was very happy that we don't have to bother the client over and over again to get all of those insights, and my guys could open it up and then rebuild the entire thing as well. So yeah, I think that first conversation kind of gave me the impression that he knows exactly what he wants. It's a fixed scope kind of thing. I don't expect any challenges to come that way, and he's very honest and forthcoming when it comes to the requirements and the challenges he has had. People don't generally tell you that, hey, I am paying XYZ $70, $80, $90 more than what you're asking, and I don't want to keep doing that. But he was forthcoming like that. So I think I understood immediately that this would be a good partnership.
No, that's great, Sajid. So Sajid, while we're on this subject, and you did mention, and I think there's, always like to keep things upbeat and positive, but realities of some of the challenges you have, especially, with your team being all offshore, and then Shahab obviously working here in Central Time. What are some things that came up that you feel are real and near and other people can face, and how did you overcome those in terms of the project delivery?
Yeah, I think there are three big challenges that I would scope out. One of them is that anytime you have a live project ongoing, especially one with tight timelines in Pakistan and generally in offshore delivery models as well, there's a very high risk of a key resource churning out in middle of the project, and that tends to happen very, very frequently as well. What people do in that particular context is they keep the same account and then just have somebody else, which is unethical in my opinion, but then that's how they ensure contingency. So one of the things I made clear to my team regarding that challenge was, look, if there's a better opportunity, at least have the courtesy to discuss it with me first as somebody that you look up to or somebody that you have a relationship with, and chances are that I'll probably retain you understanding what your motivation is. The other thing is that if you direct people that you have a certain job description and I need you to put in a certain number of hours and then don't give them the ownership of success, it tends to backfire as well. That's another challenge, right? So if you tell them, hey, your job is you're going to be a data engineer and I'll give you a project, you're supposed to work 9 hours a day, I need you to come in at 9 and I need you to leave at 5 or 6, I think that confines the ownership aspect of it. So what has worked really well for us is not tying anything to time. These are human beings, they have a life outside of work. It could very well be that one day they need to show up at 1 or 2 p.m. But as long as their ownership is tied up to a certain outcome, that Umar, I need you to deliver this in 2 weeks time, I don't care if you work from Nathiagali or if you work your nights, this is your deliverable. Then he gets that ownership that it's not about what kind of time am I putting in, how many hours am I putting in, it's more about what kind of outcome am I deriving. And I think the acknowledgement and appreciation that comes with that kind of ownership once it works out is something completely different. So in my experience, one of the reasons people have tried to run such a tight ship is because they have concerns. Even when I was moving to Canada, a lot of people in my network kind of warned me against it, that if there's nobody looking at how many hours they're putting in, chances are your team is going to stop showing up altogether. And I said, I've maintained a very different kind of mindset, very different kind of culture based on my own experiences, and I don't think that's going to be a risk. The third component of it is that you need to give them that flexibility of having that bandwidth to take on calls at night as well with the client. So especially with him being in CST hours, and the way you give that buffer is, hey, shave off your mornings, there's no fixed time. If you are expected on a call, I'll let you know beforehand, but I'll genuinely appreciate it. So you compensate them and tie their bonuses up with the project outcome as well. In our case, it was like, hey, if you have to take some call at night, consider it overtime for me, because that is not a part of your formal job description. But now that we're working with CST, that is something I would expect you to do. And as long as you take care of the people that do the delivery for you, it tends to go in the right direction. So I feel like those three components, if you take care of them, give them the kind of ownership and inculcate that customer obsession kind of mindset right from the onset, right when you're training them as a fresh graduate, as somebody with 1 to 3 years of experience, I think it goes a long way, because in my experience, it has never been a talent problem in Pakistan. We have had some of the best developers. It's more that customer obsession mindset on going above and beyond what's asked of you. In our project, I used to personally put in time to train some of Shahab's clients, taking up the time to walk them through Power BI, not a part of the contract, but I understood that is a requirement and he's going to have to look elsewhere to get that catered to. So that kind of a thing, and then just making sure that you're doing a little bit over what you're supposed to do, it goes a long way in building relationships. So if you encapsulate those values and try to inculcate in resources right from the onset, it goes a long way.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sajid. And for the audience, see, what we're trying to bring here is some real life lessons, right? And how to focus in and help people here understand and build value. We know there are a lot of challenges. What Sajid has been able to create is not easy to create, but then that's where the magic happens, right? So So Shahab, just coming back to you now, and the validation piece, the reality. So Sajid shared, a little bit. Here are the processes. Here's how we did it. Here's how I keep my employees up. What did you see that convinced you throughout the process of the project that said this is a footprint and a culture that really works and can work with, especially with someone onshore like you?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, Sajid has caught on to something that we've always had in our company, right? So it's an alignment of two cultures, two company cultures, right? So we've had that same culture that Sajid just alluded to, right? That is in his company, which is a culture of ownership, right? We do that as well. The guy says, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. I won't be in the office for the next 5 days." We don't ask any questions. We say, "Take your time. But this is your deadline. This is when you're going to be producing this. I don't care if you do it from home. I don't care if you do it from your car, as long as it's done." So, but if this is your project, we will not ask you any questions. And that's, I think, that a specific type of employee is going to take that as a gift in terms of the job that he or she has, right? They will actually take ownership, and you'll know right away that if somebody is not going to be able to produce, they're not going to be part of your team for very long. So we have the same thing. I actually had a guy not too long ago. We just go like, "I'm taking the next 5 days off. I'm just not feeling good," and no questions asked. Take the 5 days off. I'll see you next Monday. As long as he or she is meeting the deadlines, which is what is important to us, and it is important to the customer as well. And so I have the same guy working, up to midnight, and as you know, Faruk, overtime laws and so on in America are very stringent. Never any talk of, "Hey, will I get overtime if I'm here till midnight working on the company project?" Never comes up, right? Because they're not required to be here 9 to 5. They are required to finish the job. And so from our culture, it's the same thing. And they feel like they own that project. They feel like they want to do this without having to even ask me several questions. They want to take ownership and they want to finish their project. So from both my company and Sajid's company's perspective, there's an alignment there as well. And so the same thing, like I was asking him, like I would get emails from his guys at all odd hours. And I knew that was the case there, that those guys were just taking ownership. I would have conversations, say, "Yeah, we're going to the gym at 8 o'clock at night. We're going to be at the gym 12. And then I'm going to come back to work and finish this for you, Shahab." And we're like, "Dude, you can wait till the next day." He goes, no, it needs to be done tonight. And we're like, what sort of people are these that they want to go to the gym at night, then they want to finish the gym at 12, and then come back to work, right? So it's refreshing to see that is the kind of work ethic that exists in Pakistan, because it did not used to, right? And then I still think that there are probably still a lot of companies where that is still a problem, right? But a good partnership, a good alignment comes with similar company cultures, similar principles, and those are the things that when they come together, it's a thing of beauty.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's great insight, gents. And this is something I think a lot of folks don't delve into. But I'm gonna throw out the devil's advocate question, right? Because we hear this often enough from Pakistan, right? That things fall through the cracks, and this happens and that happens. So back to you, Sajid. Question to you now. How are you identifying and nurturing these folks, right? And how does that happen? What's that process look like?
I think any person in the journey that they partake is largely a function of the exposure that they have had at different stages in their career. And I feel like the reason we have not been able to achieve that kind of commitment and output is because they haven't been exposed to that really early on. And I'll give you an example. I studied here in Canada. I worked here for the first 3.5 years of my career. And when I went back to Pakistan, my first job there was for a unicorn, had a pretty good position. And the first thing I wanted to do right into the job was get a lay of the land and understand, like, what am I going to build? Because that is where I derived all of my contentment from. And I sat down with a couple of folks and I told them, hey, this is what I'm going to do in week 1, week 2. This is how I'm going to implement analytics across the organization. I see a lot of opportunities. I see a lot of pain points. And then a couple of my teammates, they took me out for lunch. One of them was a VP of sales. The other one was also a very senior director. And they took me to this nearby place on MM Olive Road in Lahore. And they said, look, if you go at that pace with that degree of energy and commitment, you're going to make all of us look bad. And we're not happy with that kind of equation. So there are two possibilities. One, you slow yourself down, or two, we kind of put obstacles in your path so that it becomes harder for you. You take the choice. And I was very surprised, why would somebody have that conversation with me where all of us should technically be aligned on the same business objectives, right? And then it immediately occurred to me that, this is a problem which doesn't exist just within this organization, but it is also a subject of all of the experiences that these guys have had. So when we started Ascend, one of the things that I wanted to really focus on was, instead of bringing talent which is very experienced from outside, less open to change, we should start incubating through co-op programs, get students who are in their 3rd or 4th year, give them the exposure, give them the opportunity, and then allow them to shadow on live projects which are outside of Pakistan. So somebody in their 3rd or 4th year is seeing that, people in this domain actually work past midnight sometimes as well. They're supremely committed. They actively work on their communication. They're client obsessed. They want to genuinely derive better outcomes for the clients that they work with. And if you go into the job market with that mindset, it's a completely different story, as opposed to you having worked in 2 different organizations where people just cared about clocking in the number of hours and then also slowing things down so that other people are not made to look bad. So for us, what has really worked out is that even now when we hire somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience or even more, as soon as they come within the organization, they start seeing that, okay, these guys operate differently than anything else that I've seen. There's a lot of ownership, and then there's a lot of accountability on that ownership as well, and then everybody cares about the KPI that they're trying to derive, and they're all obsessed about the kind of outcome. And the reward system within the organization too is also very ROI driven. So somebody who's operating at, say, 5 to 7x multiple of their salary, they're working on a US project, they're getting billed 5 or 6 times, they're gonna take away 5-6 times their salary as a bonus at the end of the year as well. So that mindset of, it's not just a job, the more I do, the more impact I create, the more I own as a piece of the pie is the key differentiator. And I think one of the strategies that has worked out really well for us is that we don't wait for people who are experienced. We actually have that training ground where we pair them up with senior resources, expose them, give them the opportunity to present on live projects and share their findings and build that confidence at a very early stage too. And that one of the reasons it has worked out for us is because they end up joining us full time as well. They fall in love with the culture of sorts. So I think that has been a key differentiator, and largely stemming from my own experience. At the end of the 6 co-op terms that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had a pretty good idea what I did not want to do. And I think that works out well for people who've never had that exposure. It becomes a level playing field of sorts.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. That's good feedback, and hopefully for our audience, people who are in either on the buy side or the sell side of these situations, I hope there's value that's being derived for you. Last question, I'll start with Shahab. So we keep hearing now AI and the advent of AI. We're seeing a lot of retrenchment here because of that. Shahab, how does that, in your opinion, affect your ability to continue working with Pakistan, and what are you looking for?
So AI is, again, there's a lot of flux in what's happening with AI right now. And there's models out there that show AI is very helpful. You can get up to 3x of your investments, or your ROIs are great. And then we've seen the AI's things that are not very effective. It's brand new technology. It is lacking a lot of use cases. But overall, I think we have a situation where I think companies are just willing to spend some AI dollars to get some level of AI in there. Anytime we build a model, and of course we understand how all of that can affect a company a little bit better, it's difficult to make the stakeholders understand this is how you will get your ROI if you do this, right? AI is definitely a game for the larger companies because that's where you can achieve efficiencies. That's where you can achieve that 3x ROI and can make a solid case and say, see what I told you that we can deliver. The issue with Pakistan is that, again, because of lack of use cases that people have worked on, there's a lack of understanding of how efficiencies can be obtained or realized in these larger corporations. And so that gap will eventually get narrow and narrow and they will catch on. But that's where somebody like us will come in handy. Like I mentioned, I've been in this industry over 30 years. We understand corporate America. We understand the work processes in America. We understand how and where those efficiencies can be realized. And we can make the use case. Then we can take that knowledge and pass it on to an AI person in Pakistan, a concern in Pakistan. Again, Sajid has, is way ahead of the game already because of his exposure to American or Western corporate cultures and corporate frameworks. But I think somebody like us would be ideal to, everybody can build an AI model, right? So you can put your AI models on anything you want. You just need to be able to understand how to do it. And that's where somebody like us comes along and says, look, guys, this is how we want to take this data, make it more efficient, make it more accessible, make it more summarized for this particular workflow, right? And so that engineering needs to be done ahead of time by us, and then it can be implemented by pretty much any competent team in Pakistan. That's my take on that. I think companies like us will play a big role, and I think companies in Pakistan will be able to produce and then eventually catch up, right, where they understand how all of these processes work, and will be able to get to that same level. At the moment, Pakistani AI companies do need companies like iDominium to get them into the game.
Makes sense. Well, thanks for those insights, Shahab. We're coming up on time, so I want to wrap it up with Sajid. So Sajid, based on your opinion, seeing what you've seen, working with corporates, working on projects, advent of AI, how do you see that impacting you and your business and your workforce?
I think it largely depends on the perspective that you opt out for. Like Shahab said, any technologist in their right mind would understand that AI is not going to take any of the foundational and architecture work. Nobody is handing over architecture decisions to AI. That's where good design engineering, good systems engineering is still going to come into play. I think you can either opt out that perspective that, previously an analyst was required to look at a data set and mine actionable intelligence, and now I can feed that same data set to ChatGPT and get a certain degree of granularity in the insights as well. The other perspective on that is that previously there was a huge singular point of failure when it comes to decision intelligence frameworks, which is that regardless of how good the model is, what kind of output it is giving, as long as the person who's supposed to execute on that insight is not executing, it's not going to generate any ROI for the business, right? So with that, what AI has really done is that it has removed or sort of automated through agents that execution leg. So now, instead of telling you what a good retention strategy would be like based on data, I can actually set up an agent that goes ahead and executes that strategy as well. So for us, from a decision intelligence perspective, we need to become the enabler of that technology by doing all of the foundational work, by understanding the problem deeply, and then understanding that it's not the buzzword that the organizations are trying to catch up to, it's actually the efficiency that comes with it. So if I can commit to somebody that you're going to spend $150,000, $200,000 on an AI automation project, but I can guarantee you that the ROI is going to be upwards of $2 million. And this is why. This is the number of hours you would save. This is the process efficiency. One example of that is, revenue cycle management in healthcare is a very complex problem. About 200 different payers, so many different nuances on how each payer wants the data. Huge potential for AI to come in as well. And frankly speaking, not having met Shahab Bhai and a couple of other partners as well, my understanding of how to frame AI for healthcare would be very different. The reason it reached to that consensus is because I saw that problem firsthand. I saw on how decision making happens within these organizations and how to position that in a way that is appealing to them to accept. I feel like, it's a good opportunity for us and for a lot of other companies in Pakistan to first deeply understand a problem that is in a specific industry lateral and then try to solve a very specific problem rather than being very generic that, we can do any sort of AI or agentic automation as well. I think that's the way to go.
That's very helpful. Sorry, Sajid. And as I see it, these are real insights for the audience that we're trying to share out to people, help them understand. We have enough complexities working within this environment because of the challenges we have. The good news of late, I think our scenario has changed a little. So for those of you out there, look, we really want to help enable the Pakistan environment. That's why we're bringing these stories to you. We'd love to get your feedback on this. I know there's people out there looking at this, but please like, share, subscribe. Help us get the word out that Pakistan is a hotbed of talent and there's a very positive way to work forward with that. And with that, I wanted to thank you, Shahab and Sajid, for being on the show. Appreciate your time and insights.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, Faruk.